Hey there, welcome to April's Flute Q&A. This is number 5 of 5 Q&As and it is the final Q&A. So I hope that you have got a lot out of these Q&As. I've really enjoyed doing them. It's really fun to, just have a chat with you and fix your flute problems. So my name is Jane Kavanagh. I'm a flute teacher. I live in Sydney in Australia. And I think I said I'm a flute teacher. Did I say I'm a flute teacher? Oh my God. Anyway, you know I'm a flute teacher. So we've got some really great questions today. And if you're in my Flute Academy and you've just gone, oh my God, no more flute Q&As for you, look out for an email in the next week or two. And I'm going to show you how you can continue doing flute Q&As with me inside the Flute Academy. All right, here we go. First question. Some really good questions. Oh, I decided to do today without glasses because it's quite bright in here today and the light reflects off my glasses and I was trying to close doors and I went, I'll just take my glasses off. A little bit blind, but that's all good. I don't need great vision to see you, who is actually the camera right at the moment. Okay, so Joanne asks, I loved today's Flute Academy lesson on scales. Great. I love the mnemonic that you used because I was always frustrated with myself that I could never just remember the scales by heart. I understand the mnemonic is the same back and forth for sharps and flats. Yes, you're right. But what never seems to make sense for me is the order of the scales. Why do we start with C major? Sorry, we start with C major, but then why is it F major, followed by G major, followed by B flat and D major and so on? Great. Okay, so if you're sitting there thinking, what is she talking about? What mnemonic? Okay, it will make sense if I write this down for you. And I'm going to talk at the same time, which is a bit dangerous because I'm not the world's greatest multitasker. Okay, so here we go. Battle ends. Oh my God, that was a fail already. Okay, battle ends and down goes Charles's father. I just wrote down the first of each letter there. This was attempt number 1, but that was a fail. So battle ends and down goes Charles's father. That is the order of flats in a key signature. Now, if you say that backwards, it's the order of sharps in a key signature, and it also makes sense kind of sentence-wise. So saying it backwards, Father Charles goes down and ends battle. So that's really cool. That is the order of flats and the order of sharps that Joanne is talking about. And she said, why do we do the order? In the Flute Academy, there's a lesson on scales, and I've listed out the list of scales. And I've ordered them from no sharps to the one with 1 flat, to the one with 1 sharp, to 2 flats, to 2 sharps, 3 flats, 3 sharps. Joanne, that order is just the order that it makes sense to basically learn them in. Not exactly learn them in that order, but it makes sense to get used to them in that order because it's going from the ones that take the least brain power when you're a beginner to the ones that take the most brain power as you get more advanced. The real order, yes, there is an order and yes, there is a pattern. And I'll tell you that it is this. So have a look at, let's start at F. Now, if you're in the key of F major, go up a 5th. So F, G, A, B flat, C, and you get to C. Ching. Now, if you're in the key of C major, go up a 5th and you get to G. Go up a 5th, you get to D. Go up a 5th, you get to A. Up a 5th to E, and up a 5th, you get to B. So that's the connection. It also works that if you list out your scales from order of, let's go, hang on, I'm just thinking. I haven't written it out like this before. Okay, I'm going to do it without paper because it's easier. So if you list out your scales from, let's go, oh my God, this is making for really bad viewing. Pause. Okay, I just paused the video because I wanted to write this out for you. This is the order of scales: 7 flats, 6 flats, 5 flats, 4 flats, 3 flats, 2 flats, 1 flat, nothing, 1 sharp, 2 sharps, 3 sharps, 4 sharps, 5 sharps, 6 sharps, 7 sharps. Now, when you put it in that order, Joanne, C flat up to G flat is a fifth. G flat, so in the key of G flat up to D flat is a fifth, the interval of a fifth. D flat in the key of D flat up to A flat is a fifth. All the way through, so they're all a fifth apart. Using the key that you're in, you go up a fifth in the scale, so you go to the fifth note of the scale. That is the pattern. So that should probably shine a light on what you feel like you've been missing, what you have been missing all these years. So there you go, nice and simple. Kind of complex, but simple. Okay, Joseph says, actually Joseph hi Joseph, he had a reply for Helle. Helle asked why she was spitting. And Joseph has had this issue, and he has found his own solution. And Helle, he wrote to me to pass it on to you, which is very thoughtful. Thank you, Joseph. He says, I found the problem of spitting too much is caused by tension, needless and unhelpful tension in the tongue. My tongue was very tense, always positioned to produce the y in yellow. Spittle comes about under these conditions. Once the player stops this and starts using a very light tongue like a butterfly in the mouth instead of a wombat, the problem evaporates into thin air and never returns. So there you go, Helle. It's straight from Joseph. And I love, Joseph, that you used wombats because I love wombats. Okay, Ashely asks, how do you play a new note on the flute? Goodness me, that's a short but very big question. You learn the fingering. So what I would suggest you do actually first, I don't know if you can already play, but if you can already get a sound and you can get a good sound, then I'd suggest you go and download a fingering chart that I did up, which is nice and clear. I'm going to put a link below your question so that you can download the fingering chart for free. I'll just make a note of it. Link to fingering chart. And now, Ashely, if you can't already get a sound and you want to learn how to produce a sound, I suggest you go and do the free mini course. And I'll put a link to that as well. That will show you how to improve your tone, and during that it also shows you how to, if you can already get a good tone, if you can already get a tone, it shows you how to get an even better tone. Okay, our next question comes from Adelynn, and she says, does a lisp affect your ability to play the flute? You know, I've never thought of that. I wonder. No, it doesn't. No, I just thought about it and I have the answer. No, it doesn't, because a lisp affects sounds like S's, like S. When you play the flute, you don't do that position, that movement, that consonant at all, ever. So if you have a lisp, and in the, without the flute, you can do this, then you can play the flute. It doesn't affect your flute playing at all. Now, I'm basing that not on experience of people with lisps, but on experience of having a degree in linguistics, and my focus was phonetics. And I mean, you don't need a degree to work out that you don't do s when you play the flute, but I know that for sure from the mechanics of when you speak and the mechanics of when you play the flute, that they're separate. So if this is you're talking about, you're going to have no problems. Mary asks, could you talk about the slight embouchure change needed to go from middle octave E to middle octave F sharp? I'm playing a piece in D major and I'm having trouble with this slight shift. I just thought of something I have to tell you all. I'll answer your question first, Mary. So E to F sharp in the middle octave. Honestly, there's not really an embouchure shift that you make from E to F sharp. The embouchure shift that you make is on E compared to the notes below the E. E is the first note going up, where it uses the same fingering for an octave below. So for example, the note below E, which is D sharp, uses a different fingering for the note below. So E is the first note going up the flute that needs embouchure control to get your tone, your sound to be the right octave. And if you don't use the right embouchure control, you could well get the note below, the E below, by accident. So the embouchure control that you're talking about, the slight shift, and this is what I talk about in the high notes module of the Flute Academy as well. It's really for E. Progressively, your embouchure will slightly shift as you go up the flute, but the difference between E and F sharp is so small, like it's only a tone, it's only 2 semitones, that you're not really going to be shifting at all. If you said that, can you talk about the shift between E and the E above? Woo, got lots to say on that. But between E and F sharp, there's not much change at all. Now, if you're finding that you're having trouble getting the F sharp, maybe there's a leak in your flute, because it shouldn't feel any different between E and F sharp. That's the short story. So I hope that helps. Now, the thing that I had to tell you all, if you're in the Flute Academy, hi! And I need to apologize to you because these questions got mixed up, and so your questions are not first. Normally in these Q&As, I've put the Flute Academy students' questions first, but in this Q&A, they're all going to be mixed up. But you can find your name in the timestamp, or you can just list all the questions because they're really good questions and hopefully really good answers. Okay, Glen asks, hang on, away from microphone. Do you have any tips or exercises for improving intonation? Yes. I can hear that my open C and C sharp and some of the third octave notes are sharp. Yes, they are. So what is the best way to learn how to quickly and accurately correct these while I play? Well, do I have the answer for you? The best way to improve your intonation, step 1 of improving your intonation, is to improve your tone. And I'll give you a demonstration. So Glen said that his C's and C sharps are sharp. So did you notice that when I played them the second time and they were sharper, deliberately, also the tone was off? If you improve your tone on these notes, and I'll use C sharp as a demonstration, if you improve your tone, you are automatically improving your intonation as well. So I'll use C sharp. Listen to the change in tone and listen to the change in intonation. See that? Improved tone equals improved intonation. Now, beyond that, Glen, the flute is naturally sharp up high and it's naturally flat down low. And we need to use our ability and our flexibility of our embouchure to adjust that, as we play the flute. Now, I know you're in the Flute Academy, Glen. So, oh my God, I almost said your last name, but that would be, I won't, don't worry. That would be giving away privacy. I was about to say, as long as you're Glen, I know you're in the Flute Academy, but I'm not going to say that. So Glen, because I've only got your first name here. If you're in the Flute Academy, if you're the Glen that I'm thinking of, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, oh my God, what was I going to say? Oh my God. I had a really good answer for you, Glen. What was I going to say? Oh no, this is not supposed to happen live on camera. I was talking about the magic tone exercise in the Flute Academy that improves your tone. Oh my God. That's so embarrassing. Okay, if I think of it, I'm going to come back to it. The magic tone exercise in the Flute Academy gives you all the tools that you need to be able to improve your tone, which improves your intonation. Oh, I know. Yes. Okay. The lesson in the Flute Academy called, it's one of the exercises near the end. What did I call the lesson? It's on embouchure flexibility. The holy grail of embouchure flexibility. The holy grail of embouchure flexibility. That's what I think I called the lesson. Embouchure flexibility is what you use to influence the intonation as you play after you have really nailed the magic tone exercise. The flute is naturally sharp up high, like you mentioned. So using embouchure flexibility, you can control your, you have the flexibility to be able to control your intonation up high. So for example, I'll play this sharp. Oh, I forgot to play it sharp, hang on. And with some control, in amongst that embouchure, slight embouchure flexibility that I use there, I didn't blow so hard, because I've also learned in the Flute Academy, there's the lesson on not, the illusion of forte is the name of that exercise, that lesson in the Flute Academy. And it's about not learning how to not need to blow so hard. And that is the main reason that people play sharp up high, because they're blowing hard to get the high notes. So hopefully that will guide you, Glen, into the exercises that will help with this in the academy, and just give everyone else a general overview of what can make you sharp up high and why you don't play in tune. Okay, Dale asks, hang on a sec. Dale says, "Hi Jane, please could you expand on using different vowel positions to alter oral cavity shape for better tone for beginners like me? I'm finding that the ta for tonguing leaves my tongue down, wide and flat, and I get a lovely crisp start to the note this way. And it seems to solve the problem of my tongue being in the way when I breathe in, which you noticed in the personal review video that you recorded for me." Pause. When you sign up to the Flute Academy, you have the option of choosing a personal review video from me, which is what Dale is referring to, just so you know. "I have been subconsciously trying to remember to use E for low notes and U for high notes, but this seems to cause all sorts of chaos in my oral cavity and lips when tonguing with ta." I'm so glad you asked this, Dale, because that is not the vowels that you need to use for low and high notes. When I talk about the slight embouchure movement that you go for high notes, and I talk about U for high notes, it's a lip movement, not a tongue movement. So it's a slight pout of your lips for high notes, not your tongue and your whole mouth moving into U. So basically when you play, you always, like you've discovered, tongue out of the way and lower and a more open vowel shape is what you want for all notes on the flute. All of them. Oh no, I thought my camera just turned off. Well, it did momentarily. You want your inside of your mouth cavity to be open all the time. Not to the extent that you feel like you're kind of opening it up and it ruins the rest of your playing, but just generally you want to open, not in that sort of position. There is an exception to this, and I'm going to expand on this over the next probably year or so in my flute teaching online. It's dynamics. So dynamics, for loud, you have an open mouth cavity, and then for soft dynamics, for piano, you'll be more in the tongue forward and more closed up position to get the pianissimo playing. But this is not what you're referring to, Dale. Yours is the just general playing. So there you go. That's really important, and I'm really glad you asked. Judi asks, "How do I keep the keys from clacking as I play a fast passage?" Good question, Judi. The best way to do that is to keep the tension out of your fingers and hands. And the best way to do that is to keep the tension out of your arms. The best way to do that is to keep the tension out of your shoulders. So there you go. If you start to float your shoulders a bit more, there's a whole module in the Flute Academy on this about posture and floating shoulders and how to actually do it. But to get you started on the right track, if you can just relax your shoulders more as you play, this is the very, very start of learning to have more relaxed hands, which means that your fingers won't clunk so much. So there you go. The other thing you can do is keep your fingers closer to the keys, and they won't kind of slam down on the keys. There you go. Lynna, did I spell your name right? Is that supposed to be Lynn? Lynna, I hope I've written this right. "Hi Jane, I'm having a hard time with the lowest C, especially when played fast in succession to higher notes. I've checked that my flute is fine. Please let me know if you have any suggestions or tips for this note. Thank you very much." Such a nice question, Lynna. I like all your exclamations, exclamation marks. "I'm having a hard time with the lower C, especially played fast in succession to high notes." Okay, so it sounds like you're having trouble going. Oop, that was a finger thing. Yes, so I do have some suggestions for you. Take the low C, isolate the low C, and if you find that you can play it, but it takes a little bit of time to get the sound to come out. Just check my camera. Like this. Did you hear there was air at the start? If you have time at the start of the note where it's not coming out, that is the reason why you can't play it in fast passages. Because when you only play the low C for a small amount of time, and it's taking you a while to get into the note, that explains why it's not coming out. So you need to practice being able to play the low C right from the start of playing it, like this. And I would suggest that you try to do that, you practice this, I should say, without tonguing. So there was no tongue on that. And I think that I can get that even crisper from the start with no tongue, to the point where it almost sounds like you're tonguing, because it's the note, the sound is just bang right at the start. That will teach your embouchure to be in the right position right from the start of the note, and then when you're playing it in fast succession with other notes, your mouth has been trained to go to the right position to get the low C right from the start of the note. So there you go. Christopher asks, oh, this is a good question. Not strictly a musical question, but some time ago you sent me a piece of silver anti-tarnish paper when I joined up to your Flute Academy. Oh, I should show you what it is. I don't have it here. It was very effective. Can you please tell me where you purchased the paper? Yes. So this is a spoiler alert for anyone who is not in the Flute Academy but who is wanting to join up. Spoiler alert. Or if you're in the Academy and you haven't received your welcome pack, spoiler alert. I send everyone a little gift, and it's a piece of anti-tarnish paper, also called silver protector paper. It's you put it in your flute case and it absorbs the I was going to say chemicals, the elements in the air, specifically I think it's sulfur. It absorbs the chemicals / stuff in the air that tarnish your flute, and it goes into the paper instead. You don't notice the paper change, but that's what it does. Jewelers use this. It's actually jewelry paper, not musicians' paper, but musicians use it all the time. So where can you buy it? If you go into a jewelry store, I reckon they'll have some. And I think they'd probably sell it to you. The other place you can look for it is eBay and Amazon, which is where I get it. Okay. Good question. If you have joined up to the Flute Academy and you haven't received your welcome pack, and as I record this, there are 3 of you. I'm going to do your welcome packs tomorrow. That's your little prezzy in the mail. Melody asks, who are some of the best flute pedagogy teachers currently? You know, that's an amazing question. There are so many good flute teachers in the world. So many. Like so many. That I'm not all over all of them by any means. The one that stands out is James Galway, because he is an amazing player, and he's been an amazing player for decades, literally decades. But he's also an amazing pedagogue, an amazing teacher. He's such an advocate for good flute teaching that he really is. He's a real standout. So there you go. Hope that points you in the right direction. The other thing you can no, I was going to say, you weren't saying, I'm trying to find a flute teacher. You're just generally asking. So yeah, I would say James Galway. There's heaps of others. I just, I'm not on top of all of them. Do a bit of Googling. Go into a flute society or a flute association Facebook group or website or forum, and have a bit of a ask around there as well, because everyone is going to give you different answers, not because some answers are right and some answers are wrong. There's just so many good flute teachers around. Okay. Carol asks, hi Jane, I have trouble playing low C. What a coincidence. So did Lynna. When I am playing in the low register and heading towards low C, sometimes I will cheat by not pressing down the E flat key when I play low F or low E. I do this in order to get my right hand pinky ready to reach the low C key. I'm pretty sure this is a bad habit, but I'm wondering what else I can do. Currently, I'm on lesson 15 in your Flute Academy. Thanks so much for your help. You're welcome, Carol. I thought you were going to say you had trouble getting low C to come out, like Lynna was saying, but it's more your fingering you're talking about. Now, you're right. It's a bit of a cheat when you. So this is what Carol. This is what Carol was saying. She takes this pinky off to prepare her finger to be able to get the low C key, like this. Oh my gosh, that was such an exaggeration that I missed the holes in my open hole flute because I don't normally play like that. Let me try that again. So Carol says she takes her pinky off for low E to prepare in fast passages. I know you don't do it when it's that slow. Yes, it's a cheat. Yes, it's a bad habit, but I reckon if you took professional players in fast passages like you're talking about that use low C and you filmed their right pinky, I reckon if you slowed it down, you would see their finger also come off a little bit early to prepare for going to the low C in fast passages. So it is a bad habit, and it's not a bad habit, it is a cheat, but we all do it. It just depends on the extent to which we do it. If you slowed down a recording of pro flute players' right hand pinky, they would do it less than what amateur players would do. So they cheat less. If you're going, I know this wasn't your question, but if you're going from E flat to C, and you've got to do the slide, you might have seen one of my videos on this, the YouTube videos. Actually, I'll put a link to you for you. There's a great example. Can't multitask, can't talk and write at the same time. So, link, C, low, C, nose trick. What that is, do this to the side of your nose. Oh, that's not good. I put makeup on for this video, so I just smeared makeup onto my finger. But never mind, it's for the purpose of this demonstration, it will work. Then smear it onto your keys down there and it makes it nice and smooth. Might seem gross. It's fun fact of playing the flute. Everyone does it. Okay, next question. Hong asks, how do I play sheet music from memory? Does a flute player need to familiarize themselves with the solfege system? When I play a scale, my brain translates the notes into finger positions. So I remember the finger position for each note. However, when I play flute without music, my fingers follow the brain singing do, re, mi, fa, etc. I do not memorize the notes by using the sheet music. So Hong, if your question is how do I memorize music from sheet music, I would say do whatever works for you. Whatever works. Because there are different ways of memorizing. So for example, I have a friend, a colleague, and I play in a band with her. She memorizes music completely by ear. So she'll play, she's got a phenomenal memory for remembering music. She kind of sorry, I just had to check it was still recording. She kind of absorbs the music into her brain and then just remembers how it sounds and then plays it. I am not like that. I am a little bit, to some extent, a little bit. I'm a combination of that and a combination of learning patterns in the music. So for example, this phrase, it jumps up to a B flat, the next phrase, it jumps up to a C. For example, learning patterns, or it jumps down to an A here and then it also jumps down to an A here, and then to connect those two phrases and remember them as both jumping down to an A. So I remember it half by like orally and half by patterns. Some people remember it visually. So do whatever works. That's really the short answer for you, Hong. It's do what works. And if it sounds like you're doing it sort of by ear, but also tactilely, like when you said you remember the finger positions, just work with that. Okay, Carl asks, how do I properly remove and re-add my right pinky when going on runs from B to D? So, like this. See this pinky? That's what he's talking about. It comes off and on. And also B flat. Actually, pretty much any note going to D, this will come on and off. My best advice for you, if you've gone through the Flute Academy lessons, you'll know that I talk about having a curved pinky is good, because a dead straight pinky like this is going to lock and it's going to hurt. I can't remember, Carl, I can't remember if you're in the Flute Academy, but there's an exercise in there that teaches you the best way to curve your pinky, because it's more than just curve your pinky. Because that feels awkward, but that's I guess the start of being able to do this quickly and comfortably, is to have a curve into your pinky. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit. Gary asks, how do you prevent noises in the throat when playing? Gary, that is such a good question that I did a whole YouTube video on it. I'll link to it for you below. Link throat noises. There's the main reason is when you have tension up here that doesn't need to be there. It's your throat, in your vocal cords, they are trying to control the airstream in a way that they're used to. When I say that, when we speak, what is making the sound is your vocal cords vibrating like this, vocal folds, they'd call it in linguistics. When you play the flute, you don't use your vocal folds at all. Your throat should feel relaxed and open. Often it's different parts of your body that are tense, and that is causing your throat to feel tense. That is why in the Flute Academy there's a whole module dedicated to tension, where we go through different parts of your body and release them, release the tension out of them, so that we eventually, finally, the last step is to open up your throat and get rid of that tension. The other thing that it affects is your breathing. So the breathing module in the academy, that's where we start applying everything you learn in once you've opened up your throat, gotten rid of tension in other parts of your body. We start applying that to breathing, and it really hugely opens up your breathing, hugely, and it also opens up your sound. So when you learn to stop making throat noises, not only will you stop making throat noises, your sound, the resonance of your sound will improve, and the amount of air that you can take in will improve, and the speed at which you can breathe in will increase. You'll be able to breathe in fully, quickly. That's awesome for being able to play long phrases. Okay, so hopefully it helped. So the next question, Robert. Robert says, thank you, Jane, and hello. Hello, Robert. Okay, so here goes. Can the material from which the flute is fashioned really make a difference in the timbre of the sound that the instrument produces? There seems to be a great many people lined up on both sides of this problem. Can you put this question to bed once and for all? Yes, I will just check I'm recording. I am. Yes, that is such a good question. If you had asked me that 18 to 20 years ago, I would have said 100% the material that the flute is made out of does not affect the timbre of the flute sound. As you can tell, there's a but coming up. The timbre of an instrument that is made out of wood, so violin, guitar, the material, that wood, or the quality of that wood, type of that wood, hugely affects the sound, the timbre, hugely, because it is the timbre, the material that is vibrating to make the sound of those instruments, those stringed instruments. With the flute and with wind instruments, it is the air column that is vibrating that produces the sound, not the material that is vibrating. So I believed that the material did not make a difference whatsoever. The reason that I believed this is because I worked in a musical acoustics lab at the University of New South Wales, and so I was exposed to lots of different studies about musical acoustics, and particularly wind instrument acoustics. That's what I worked on. I worked on a flute project. And there was a study that I read that took a whole bunch of different quality flutes and a few professional players, and they recorded them playing all these different flutes, and then someone had to listen and see if they could tell the difference between the flutes, and they couldn't, but they could tell the difference between the players. So the interesting thing about this study is that's what I believed. Then about 15 years ago, I went to Austria to play in a flute summer academy. And I was talking about flute acoustics with one of the presenters there. And I told him about this study, and he said, yeah, I know that study well, because they were my flutes. That was done with the flutes that I made. And I went, oh my God, what a coincidence. Not really a coincidence, considering he was European as well, and I was in Europe at a flute specialist academy. And he said it was flawed because of the recordings. The recordings took away from the timbre of the instruments. And then I went, my mind was blown and my opinion completely shifted. And I went, oh my God, maybe it does make a difference. And then what I've this is where I stand right now. I'm open to the fact that the material of a flute could make a difference, can make a difference. I just don't have evidence. I'm open to it because I don't know for sure. I'm not a flute maker and I haven't done studies. But what I do know is that the craftsmanship of the flute, so the angles of the holes, the sharpness of edges, the distance between holes, all sorts of, or the distance between everything, the like tiny differences in flutes when they're made. So the craftsmanship and the quality of the craftsmanship, this makes a huge difference in the timbre of a flute. Huge. And here's what else I know. The player makes the most difference of all. The way that you play your flute and the caliber of your technique, or I should say your technique, makes a huge difference, the most difference of all. So even if the material of a flute does make a difference to the sound, it doesn't make as much difference as the craftsmanship. And that doesn't make as much difference as the actual player and their skills. This is the whole reason that I started the Flute Academy. The course that you can join, the reason that I did this is because I'm so aware of how much a player affects their sound. I'm not a flute salesperson because I know that there's only a good flute is great to have, especially one in mechanically good working order. It is good, but there's something that affects your sound and your playing even more, and it's your skills. So there you go. I hope that puts the question to bed. It might not for you, but it might put it into a different perspective for you at least. Okay, Sally asks, Jane, after I get a piece memorized and it sounds great to me and played with emotion, I record myself and I'm disappointed to hear that it sounds halting and breathy. Should I stop recording myself? Lol. Any suggestions? Sally, I know how you feel. Everyone is in the same boat. When you record yourself and the microphone's up close to you, two things happen. You hear all of your mistakes. Not mistakes. You hear all of your faults, your breathy sound, clunky keys, because the microphone is so close. Also, so for example, when I record myself, I'm shocked at all my faults. I think it's just kind of human nature that you hear your faults. They really stand out to you. The other thing, though, is that when someone is listening to you, so when an audience member is listening to you, they're not right up in your face when they're listening to you. They're at a distance. They're often in a acoustically nice room, so a room with timber floors or a mini recital hall or a church room, something that has nice resonance to the room. This makes you sound nicer as well. It does to some extent cover up your flaws, but it's also reality. So when you're performing, you're not performing in someone's face in a carpeted room with soft furnishings, curtains, bedding. that soaks up the sound and really exposes all your flaws and breathy sound. It's bad because, exposes all your flaws, but it's actually really good recording yourself because you hear these flaws and you know what to work on. So I definitely wouldn't stop recording yourself. I think it's great. Try recording yourself, however, in a room with a few more shiny surfaces. Not as much as a bathroom. A shiny, this reminds me, I did a video called How to Get an Instant Ego Boost, and it's to record yourself in the bathroom. But the problem is that it disguises your flaws and you don't know what to work on. So choose a nice room and put the microphone at a nice distance, kind of where someone would be sitting or standing when they listen to you. Record yourself there and then see how you feel about your playing. But definitely don't give up the recording yourself close up in a soft furnishings room because it exposes all your flaws and then you can work on them. Ollie asks, is low C to D... I said C to D. Is low C to D trill possible? If so, how? I can't get a clear sound. It's definitely possible. It's also definitely rare. I don't know if I've ever played this. I probably have, but not very often. Oh, that was fluffy. Oh, you know what? This is something great to tell you. My sound suddenly went fluffy. Like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, it wasn't fluffy. And I know exactly what caused it. I've recorded this part of the Q&A. So these last few questions, I recorded it a moment ago, a long moment ago. And then I realized I wasn't recording and I was like, oh no, that was such good answers. So this is my second time around for these few questions. That was stressful. That really stressed me out because I wonder if I can reproduce the good answers. It turns out I can reproduce these good answers. In fact, I think this time through might be even better. So you're in luck. But it causes stress and I hold stress here. That makes my sound fluffy. So stress for me is what gives me a fluffy sound. And that's exactly what happened just then. So I wonder if it'll come back during this Q&A, hopefully. So that was better. It wasn't the world's greatest trill, and that's because this trill is very heavy to do. Now, Sam, if you actually went this C to that D, you absolutely can do that trill. You finger a C, first trill key. That's how you trill that C to D. Okay, Heather asks... Oh, sorry, it wasn't Sam. It was Ollie who asked that question. Sorry, Ollie. Sorry, Sam. The real Sam asks, are there ways I can practice or improve without my flute? For example, when I'm sitting on the train on my way to work. Additionally, are there ways I can practice the flute without making sound? I live in an apartment and I can't practice loudly after certain hours. So, the real Sam, I feel your pain. I live in an apartment too, and I don't practice for hours every day anymore, but I used to. For a good at least 10 years, I would practice for at least 2 hours a day, often 4 hours a day, up to 4 hours a day, and I lived in apartments, and I had to be very mindful of my neighbours, so I know what you're going through. I even went through a phase of trying to work out how I could mute my flute so I could keep playing, and I never really came up with a solution on how to mute my flute, but there are ways that you can practice without your flute. If you're trying to improve the speed of your tonguing, either single tonguing, double tonguing, or triple tonguing, it's not like you can do this away from the flute. I highly recommend you do this away from the flute. When you go for a walk, if you're walking at, say, this pace, and you're practicing double tonguing, start saying out loud, quietly under your breath, when you're walking, dugga dugga da, dugga dugga da, dugga 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 da. Maybe you're walking a bit faster. Dugga dugga da, dugga dugga da, dugga 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 da. And if you're doing triple tonguing, dugga da dugga da da, dugga da dugga da da, dugga da dugga da dugga da dugga da da. And if it's just single tonguing, da 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 da, da 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 da. You might want to speed up your walking. Da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. This is the best workout for tonguing speed that I know of. The best workout in the whole world. According to me, but it actually is. If you do this for a week, and I'm saying it can be the shortest walk. If you do that for 2 minutes, give yourself a break, do it for another minute or two, give yourself a break, do it a minute or two. You've gotten to the train station, even if the train station is really close. Do that for a week, every day. You will be an absolute whiz at tonguing after a week. That is how effective this is. So yes, you can definitely practice away from the flute. Another thing, if you're sitting on the train and you've, for example, tried to memorize, or you're learning a piece by memory, you can recall the piece in your mind, or you can hum it, depending on how loud it is around you, depending how comfortable you are singing in public. You can hum it and just test your recall of the melody, because that will help you memorize it. So that's a couple of things you can do. Heather asks, is there a helpful way to practice breathing when away from the flute, for example, when driving? Heather, I put your question here because it's kind of similar to Sam's. So Heather, in the Flute Academy, the breathing module gives you exercises for breathing, but they're not exercises that you need to practice. They're exercises that give you an awareness of how to breathe properly for the flute. And then once you've got that awareness, you just practice it with the flute. You just do it when you're practicing the flute. Sam's question about the exercises, well, I should say my answer to Sam about the exercises with the tonguing, that is a muscle thing. That is something that you need to do to get better at. You need to strengthen or speed up your tongue muscle to be able to do this. With breathing, it's not really about practice. It's more about awareness. So you can certainly do it when you're driving, but it's not anything that you need to do over and over again. It's more like you do it once. In the exercise that I give you in the academy, it's more like you do it once and then you're like, oh, now I know how to breathe properly. Now I'm just going to remember to do that when I play the flute. So breathing exercises, not so much. You can do the tonguing exercises when you're driving. If you have music on the radio and there's the beat, whatever the beat is, da-ga-da-da-ga-da-da, da-ga-da-da-ga-da-da, just tongue along to the song. And that sounds really weird. And you'll speed up your tonguing as well. Okay, the next question comes from Ariana. Did I miss a question? No. How can you stop spitting while tonguing when I'm playing my high notes? Ariana, that's interesting. Go back to the second question in today, and I talked about Joseph's response to Helle about how to stop spitting when she was playing. Now, so you say it's for high notes and you're spitting. You may be blowing too hard for high notes. You may be blowing too hard. So, I mean, it's very easy for me to say, stop blowing so hard. But there's a whole bunch of things that will support you to allow you to stop blowing so hard. That bunch of things is the lessons in the Flute Academy. But to give you a bit of an overview, basically I teach you how to form a perfect embouchure, or a really good embouchure, so that you have a focused airstream, and then you focus on, through the magic tone exercise in the academy, you focus your airstream and you focus your sound to improve your tone. And that, combined with the right way to play high notes, like the slight pout when you play high notes, that gives you the control of your air up high to be able to stop blowing so hard. That is my best piece of advice for you. There is one more thing. I know that eating dairy before playing makes me salivate, and I don't think it's just me. It actually doesn't bother me anymore. Someone asked me in a Q&A a couple of months ago, what foods do I avoid when I play? And I said, oh, look, I'm pretty fine with everything now, because that my technique has overcome the effects that food have. But there is something. It happened the other day. What was it? Oh, salt. Was it salt? No. Was it salt or was it vinegar? Oh my God. This is such a great story. I can't even remember what it was. It was salt or it was vinegar. That feels like it makes my lips just shrivel and not be able to get a really good sound. So there you go. Foods can affect you. You don't have to be on a special flute diet or anything like that, but you can just avoid them before a performance, like an hour before the performance, if you find that there is something that bothers you. Okay, Ariana also asks, how do I tongue the low notes without sounding like the middle octave region? So it sounds like you're playing low notes, but they're going too high. That's from tension. That actually sheds a bit of light on the last question. If your mouth is too tight, it's going to jump up the octave when you try and play low. If you're spitting when you're up high, you might be too tight and blowing too hard at the same time for your high notes. So try and relax your mouth a bit more. Easier said than done, just, try and relax your mouth a bit. But it really is the first step to getting, to stop spitting and to getting your lower notes to come out is just relax your mouth. It's the start. Anyway, so try that. Liz asks, my flute playing sounds like I am blowing a soft raspberry at the start of each note. I suspect the problem is related to my tonguing, but am not sure how to soften it. I tongue by effectively tonguing 2 at the start of each note. Any hints? Yeah, if you're blowing a raspberry as in like that, your mouth is too tight. Your lips are too tight. They're squeezing too much. I'll see if I can do it. Ooh, that was not it. Did you say for low notes? My flute playing... Oh no, it's just raspberries, not for low notes. So... God, I can't even do it. Okay, it works for high notes. I mean, my raspberry demonstration works for high notes. I'm going to blow a raspberry at the start of this high A. That's because I am tight. If you are blowing raspberries for your high notes, relax your mouth. You might find that then you can't get the high note, and that's because you need to learn the real way of playing high notes. But at least it will get you started on the right track. You don't want to be tight when you're up high. And if you're blowing a raspberry, use it as a signal, a little reminder to relax. That's what I tell my students. If they blow raspberries, it's a reminder to relax. Rosalind asks, how can I learn to play the Great Train Race on the flute and learn the techniques needed for this song? The Great Train Race is an amazing piece using extended techniques for flute. It's by Ian Clarke, and Ian Clarke is one of my favourite composers for flute, modern composers for flute. He really knows how to write for flute. Is amazing. All of his compositions are amazing. So, the Great Train Race uses extended techniques. It uses multiphonics, it uses flutter tonguing, it uses harmonics, very fast double tonguing, and singing while you're playing. I'm going to demonstrate all of those to you. And interestingly, they are such specific things that I've got a video for at least 3 of those things, which I'll link for you below this video as well. So, can't remember the order that I just said those things in, but flutter tonguing. It's doing rrr. So your first step, ooh, was it Rosalind? Rosalind, first step is to learn how to go rrr, or you can do the one at the back of your throat, which I can't do. But you get the gist. But you don't need to do both. You only need to be able to do one. There's a video on how to flutter tongue. I'll link it for you below this video. Okay, next thing is multiphonics. Multiphonics is playing 2 notes at the same time on the flute. The flute is not designed to regularly play 2 notes at once, but you can do it. Here's an example. Hang on. I forget the thing. Oh, that was not a multiphonic. I just forgot the fingering for a second. Here's an ugly one first. Okay, now here's a more pretty one. So they're both multiphonics. I have a video on that too, called How to Play 2 Notes at the Same Time. I'll link to that below. Singing while playing is this one. So I'm just humming along to the same notes that I'm playing. Funnily, I have a YouTube video on that as well, which I'll link to below for you. Really fast double tonguing. Check out the question from, was it Sam? Yes, from Sam, about how I practice double tonguing and how I'd recommend you speed up your double tonguing. And then, and the other one is harmonics. So this is a low C. Whoa, what just happened there? I think I had my finger off the key. So So that is using low C for all of those notes, and they are called harmonics, and that is used in the Great Train Race. Rosalind, I'm also going to put a link, and anyone else who is interested in buying the sheet music, I'll put a link to that below. And if you want to hear what this piece sounds like, just Google it. The Great Train Race by Ian Clark. It will come up. There's heaps of people playing it. It's amazing. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question, Rosalind. Ariana asks, how can you play the low register without blowing too hard? And how do I stop running out of air quickly while tonguing? Those two questions are related. The main reason that you'll run out of air when you're playing your flute so quickly is if the hole in your mouth is too big. The next biggest reason for running out of air is if you're blowing too hard. So that's how your questions are related. If you've actually said, how can you stop blowing so hard for down low, and how do you stop running out of air when tonguing? You're probably blowing too hard. It sounds like you're also quite aware of that already. So how can you play the low register without blowing too hard? I'd actually just say, don't blow so hard. How else would I answer that? How do you play the low register without blowing too hard? Just blow softer? It sounds like you've got an embouchure situation going on. I'd suggest that you go and do the mini course on how to instantly improve your tone, because that's all about fixing your embouchure. I'll link to the mini course below. Link, tone, mini course. And I think that's going to get you started and on the right path. Cliff asks, what's the best syllables to use for double tonguing, daga or taka? Cliff, that is the best question, and I'm so glad you asked. Yes, I'm recording. I'm so glad you asked, because the truth is, it doesn't matter. T is the same as d, position-wise, and k is the same as g, position-wise. So it honestly does not matter. And the reason I know that is because of my background in phonetics. The only thing that changes between the two different versions, the t, k, and the d, g, is the d, g is using your vocal folds, vocal cords. And as you know from one of the questions I answered earlier, when you play the flute, you don't use your vocal cords at all. So the t, k, and the d, g, when you're blowing, is exactly the same movement. So there you go. If you have a preference for thinking of one over the other, then go for it. When I practice double tonguing, I say digga digga da digga instead of ticka ticka ta, because why is that? Why do I use digga digga da ticka 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 ticka? I know why. Because when you're speaking it to practice it, ticka 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 ticka, it's almost whispering. And the reason that it's almost whispering is because, as you know from those two sounds, t and k, you don't use your vocal cords. But when you're practicing it, digga 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 da, if you do use your vocal folds, it gives me, and I think probably other people, a greater sense of air coming out, because it's more like you're speaking, and we're used to speaking instead of whispering. You can do it louder, so you can do it when you're walking. So I would actually recommend digga, but if you use t, k, it's fine as well. When I teach beginners, I say ta is tonguing, not da, but both work as well. Mick asks, my third octave G and A are clear, but B flat, B and C are almost unachievable. Almost as if it is a completely new approach to embouchure is needed. Do others find this too? So I can answer that about do others find this too, because, I teach flute students, like children, tutor them like one at a time. And no, they don't find a difference between G and A and B flat and B and C. I mean, it's harder because it's going up higher, but it's not a completely different embouchure. Maybe there's something wrong with your flute, maybe. So that's B flat. I don't think it's a flute thing for you, because there's nothing that B flat has that would make a leak in your flute evident and not on A. So if it's working for A, it should work for B flat as well. It could be that it's just getting up high and you're just, your embouchure is struggling to use the right technique up high. So, but no, it's not a particularly different technique between B flat and A. B is a little harder. It probably doesn't, I mean, it doesn't feel harder to me because I'm used to it, but it is a hard, and it's harder to play softly. C is also harder. And I should point something out. The fingering for C has your right hand pinky off, unless you have a B foot on your flute, in which case you need to push down the gizmo key. It's a little extra key down here, and you have to push that down to play high C to get your high C to work properly and be in tune. If you have a B foot on your flute, you know you have a B foot because you have 3 of these keys instead of 2. So I have 1, 2, and a B foot has 1, 2, 3, and obviously the flute's a bit longer to accommodate that. So if you have a B foot, you need to push your gizmo key down for high C. So maybe that will help you, Mick, hopefully. Candy asks, I love this question, Candy. Aristotle says that it is fair to distribute the best flutes to the best flute players because that's what flutes are for. After playing for over 50 years, only having reasonably priced flutes all my life, I dream of having a brilliantly hand-carved flute such as a John Lunn creation, the Dryad's Kiss. Do you agree with Aristotle? This is so funny. It feels like it's a university question. I have to write an essay on it, but I do have an opinion about this. Firstly, the Dryad's Kiss is a particular flute made by the sculptor John Lunn. It's amazing. If you Google it, you will see it's a work of art. It looks like it belongs in the Lord of the Rings. It's this very, very ornate flute. It's the same type of flute as this, but all these keys, instead of just having a decorative, where's something decorative on this? See how there's like the little pointy bit of in the silver there, just tapered to make it look nice. This has like leaves and vines and creations all over it, and it's incredibly beautiful. It is a work of art. Your question, do I agree with Aristotle that the best flutes should be reserved for the best flute players? No, I don't think it's a case of being reserved for the best flute players. It's more a case of what you need. So a beginner, to intermediate, needs a flute in good working order. That's what you need. You don't need, a Ferrari, a Porsche version of a flute. You don't need it because you won't get anything extra out of it. You need to spend your first few years of playing refining your own technique and getting good at being able to control your tone, your high notes, your dynamics, your fingers, your breathing. Work on yourself. And then it's really only when you've outgrown your well-functioning flute, mechanically well-functioning flute, that you can upgrade to a more expensive and a better quality flute, because you'll be able to get more out of it. It's directly comparable to athletes or sports people and the clothing that they wear, the equipment that they use. For example, take running shoes. Whatever pair of running shoes you have, I guarantee that an Olympic runner would not run in those. And it's not because the best shoes are reserved for them. It's because they need a better pair of shoes because they can get more out of it that you and I can't. So there you go. So I wouldn't say I agree or disagree with Aristotle. It's more that I just have a different opinion. Not even a different opinion. I have a different way of looking at it. It's that it's a tool. It's a tool. It's not some, thing that's bestowed on you because you deserve it. It's a tool. So there you go. That's what I think. Frank asks, have you ever had a problem with your lips being too dry? I know it's not nervousness because of when and where it happens to me. It's when the heating or air conditioning systems dry out the room too much. There's little I can do about them in the various places I play. Just wetting my lips help, but only a little and for a little while. And with a teardrop upper lip, maybe it's more of a problem for me than others. Any quick fix or workaround you can suggest? So I'm not sure if it's more of a problem for you with a teardrop lip. I don't know about that, but I do know something else. It's really good that you've worked out that it's from the air conditioning / heating, and it means that your lips are drying out. Try drinking more water. Try keeping more hydrated, because I have noticed that if I, haven't drunk much water in the day, my lips are one of the first things to dry out. Speaking of which, I'll have a drink. So try drinking more, and see if it helps. Yeah, see if it helps. The other thing you can do is try using lip balm. For example, in winter, I will sometimes use lip balm, but I put it on, but then I actually wipe it off, very daintily. What's the word? Not very elegantly, with the back of my hand, so that when I play the flute, it's not going all over the flute. So there's enough there to sort of soak in, but not enough to slide around when you're playing the flute. So try those two things. Lavinia asks, I would like to read music again. I have also forgotten my keys on the flute. Can you help me? When you say the keys, Lavinia, did you ask a question before? Excuse me for a second. When you say the keys, I think you might mean the fingerings or the notes, actually. That's probably what you mean, is you've forgotten how to play certain notes. I can recommend the fingering chart that I, drew up for my students. I'll link to it below for you. You can get it for free. Fingering chart. That will get you back on track with learning how to play certain notes. I would like to read music again. So depending on how advanced you were, you might like to go to flutetunes.com. I'll link to it below for you. Plus Flute Tunes. They have literally thousands of pieces of free flute music. Best website. Wow, I say that, but I say that about lots of websites. It's a really, really good website. It is one of the best websites that I use during my week. You might like to look at that because you can click on easy, for the difficulty, and it brings up a whole bunch of music that you can practice your playing with. So I'm assuming that you knew how to read music before. Did you say that? I'd like to read music again. Yes. If you could already read music before, then this will be really good for you because you get to practice what you knew before. If you only say knew a little bit of reading, you might like to get a how to play flute book, and you can just Google it. And this book will teach you how to read music. It doesn't teach you how to play flute. I teach you how to play flute, and other teachers, real life and online teachers teach you how to actually play, form an embouchure, where to put your hands. But these how to play flute books teach you how to read music. I'm going to put a link below for you because there's something I want you to check out. Oh my gosh, it escaped me. What were we talking about? We were saying learn to play. Oh yeah, okay. I did a video on how to choose the best learn to play flute book to use. This is really important because there's two different types of how to play flute books, and I want you to go and watch this video. Plus flute, which learn to play flute book to play flute book. It's really important. There's two types and I recommend one over the other. So go and watch that short video and it will help you further. Cliff asks, I am a self-taught student. How do I know what level I'm at? Basically your level is whether you're at the level that you want to be. If you can play the music that you want to be playing at, and that doesn't really answer your question very well. There is another way of sort of knowing your level, and that's exams, flute exams that you can do. In Australia, I don't know where you are in the world, but in Australia it's AMEB, Australian Music Examinations Board. In England there is Trinity and also ABRSM, which is Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music. Both Trinity and ABRSM, those British ones, are actually worldwide. So if you're in the US or Canada or somewhere else, you can use those exams to give you, like doing the exams and passing and getting a certain grade to give you an idea of the level that you're at. Europe, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they use the British ones as well. Now, it's a little bit, it can, without a teacher, it can be a little bit, it's still hard to know what level you're at, because you might be able to pass an exam, but you might have, say, a fundamental embouchure problem that if you go on to do the next exam, you might not do quite as well in the exam because you haven't picked up the fundamental embouchure or posture or finger or breathing problem. But as you go up the grades, you'll find that you just struggle. You really struggle. And it's not because you're not good enough for those grades. It's because you have a fundamental technique, way of playing that hasn't been addressed. So your best way of knowing your level is to have a teacher assess you. And it's not an official assessment. It's more like saying to them, what exam grade do you think I would be capable of doing? And that will give you an idea. I know this because I learn a martial art. I learn Kung Fu. I'm a beginner. I consider myself in kindergarten, which is like, very basic level. But I know what you mean, because when I started, I really wanted to know, how do I assess my level? And they do have a grading system, so I do know. But the most important thing with the martial art that I'm learning and with learning the flute is focus on technique. Just get your fundamental skills good. And then you just keep progressing. You just keep getting better and better and better and better. Yeah, so that's my advice. Brenda asks, Cliff, I have another suggestion for you. If you haven't done the 5-day flute breakthrough, I'd suggest you do it. It's very inexpensive and it's very comprehensive. It will give you a huge idea of where you are, what sort of level. It won't assess your level, but you'll understand about what things you can and can't do. I'm going to link to the breakthrough below for you. Okay, Brenda asks, how can I extend the length of time I can hold a note for? Excellent question. Generally speaking, well, it's generally speaking, but it's also not so general, it's very specific. The bigger the hole in your mouth, the quicker you are going to run out of air. That's kind of logical, right? So if you're having trouble holding a note, it's because of the size of the hole in your mouth. It's a whole lot more complex than that. No, it's not actually more complex than that. It's more complex to apply that to your flute playing, because you'll go, yeah, great, cool, smaller hole, but now how do I actually do that? There is a whole module in the Flute Academy about getting us about tone and getting a smaller hole and embouchure. If you're not in the Flute Academy and if you want to do something a bit shorter, 5 days to get started, do the breakthrough that I just suggested to Cliff, because that will get you becoming more aware of what's causing your inability to hold a note for a long time. So there you go. It's not all about breathing. It is a little bit about breathing effectively, and there's a whole breathing module in the Flute Academy too. You can join me there if you want. It's 45 days, so it's really comprehensive. So if you want, try the breakthrough first, which is just 5 days. There's a whole module on breathing, because yes, breathing does affect how long you hold a note, but it's mostly about the hole in your mouth. Jennifer asks, I would like to have a better low C. Presently, right now, it is iffy. I laughed, Jennifer, when I read that question before, because iffy, the word iffy, I don't know if this is Australian slang. If it is, I'm going to explain what it means. Iffy means questionable, a bit like dodgy, but that could be Australian slang too. A bit off, a bit not very good. Iffy. So, Jennifer, I suggest you go back and look at the exercise that I gave to Lynna. She had a question about low C, and the way I answered her is exactly about how I would answer you, and it's about getting the start of your C clear and ultimately, or ideally, the start of your C clear with no tonguing. So go back and check out that exercise. Wolfgang asks, what is the trick when tapering a note to not get an airy sound in the diminuendo? Is there a special trick in the third register? Yes, there is a special trick. I want to elaborate on this more during this year at some point. I'm going to do a whole, a lot more in depth, even more than what's in the Flute Academy, more in depth lessons into dynamics, and double tonguing and so on. Dynamics is where your question would come in. So basically, and this is one of the exercises this is the start of one of the exercises that I'm going to put into that more in-depth look. To get a clear diminuendo, let's try it on an A. What you want to be able to do is play it loud. Oh, and do this without a tongue as well. So loud, bit softer, a bit softer, a bit softer, a bit softer. And then you join all those blocks together. So if you can do it in block, then softer, block, softer, block, softer, block, softer, block. There's your diminuendo. You're just like, whoop, done. You don't even need to practice a diminuendo after that because you've got it with your blocks of getting softer. The trick is to be able to get your note clear through your whole block. So not just in the middle, but from the start to the end. And if you can't do that, then you've gone a little bit too soft. You want control over it. And then you put that into a diminuendo. So there you go. That even, just doing that then to demonstrate actually helped my diminuendo. I don't know if you saw that the second diminuendo I did was better than the first one. That's how effective that exercise is. So there you go. It's such a funny move. Okay, we've got 2 questions left. Glen asks, how can you switch quickly or trill between the third C and D? I found... So Glen has given me a harmonic fingering that he's been using, but he says it's awkward. And you're right. The fingering that you're using for the trill is not the right fingering. There is a specific trill to trill from this D to this D. Sorry, C to D. You finger a C and you trill with your ring finger the second trill key. That is how you trill that C to D. So there you go. Frank says, oh, not a question, just you've got perfect timing. Your birthday challenge email arrived on my birthday on the 29th of March. Thank you. You're so welcome. That is awesome timing. I like that. So there you go. Your birthday challenge. It's like it was written especially for you. But actually everyone can use it on their birthday or someone else's birthday. If you don't know the birthday challenge that I'm talking about, I'll link to it below because it's a pretty cool thing to do for someone on their birthday. So that is it for the final Q&A. This is the 5th of 5 Q&As. I hope you've learned heaps over the last few months. The Flute Academy is open for April enrollments. It just opened the other day. So if you're watching this, there might be some spots left. Go to www.flute.school/academy, www.flute.school/academy if you want to check it out. How about I link below? I'll link to Academy. And I'm also going to link to the Breakthrough because the Breakthrough is a super inexpensive way to spend 5 days learning how to really accelerate your progress on the flute. So that's how I describe the Breakthrough. It's you're learning how to accelerate your progress because that's exactly what it teaches you. So you can go there, www.flute.school/breakthrough, and I'll see you either in the Breakthrough or the Flute Academy or in free YouTube videos as they come out on most weeks. See you later.